Germany had their own real-life version of Captain America, the Nazi super soldier. The most peculiar characteristic of the German army during World War II was their remarkable endurance, as they fought relentlessly without succumbing to exhaustion. They relied on unconventional substances like meth and pervitin, among other drugs, which enabled them to remain awake for extended periods, sometimes up to 4 days, relentlessly eliminating their enemies at every encounter. They could be considered the German equivalent of Captain America, embodying the concept of super soldiers in a literal sense. Welcome to History Unvaulted. Today we will delve into the astonishing intricacies of Germany's super soldiers during World War II. We will explore how these soldiers were empowered and propelled by the aid of drugs, as well as how these drugs impacted the ultimate outcome of the war. You will discover how these drugs, while instrumental in battles fought, ultimately became the downfall of the super soldiers on the battlefield. Meth use in Germany. Surprisingly, meth was not introduced by Nazi soldiers. Methamphetamine became widely popular in German society, with people from all walks of life indulging in its use on a daily basis and during their leisure time. This included students, professionals, businessmen, politicians, and various other members of society from all walks of life. Methamphetamine provided an extraordinary sense of euphoria and even served as an antidepressant, among its various other uses. Although the government was concerned about its widespread use and had initiated a program to eliminate the drug from society, military leaders were also becoming increasingly interested in it. One of the prominent figures among the Nazi soldiers was Otto Ranke, a military doctor who conducted experiments on approximately 90 college students using pervitin, a modified version of methamphetamine. The outcome of Ranke's experiment led to a significant increase in the production of meth and various other drugs by prominent pharmaceutical companies of that era. After concluding his study on the students, Otto Ranke agreed that the drug had the potential to help Germany achieve victory in the war. By using this substance, soldiers could march extensive distances without needing rest and stay awake for days on end. The effects of the drug were similar to an adrenaline rush, but even more intense. Recognizing fatigue as a major enemy, Ranke aimed to ensure German troops used performance-enhancing drugs for a greater chance of victory and survival in upcoming battles against other nations. Interestingly, it became widely known among military personnel that in the ensuing war, the Nazi soldiers were not the sole users of performance-enhancing drugs. Other military forces also resorted to different forms of these substances, such as amphetamine, to gain an advantage. Beyond the borders of Germany. On September 1, 1939, the German soldiers made a forceful and formidable entry into the borders of Poland. The Polish army proved to be no match for the superior German forces. The Polish army had significantly fewer troops than the German forces. They also lacked the advantage of the drugs that the German soldiers were already under the influence of. The German soldiers were able to use the element of surprise, and the Polish army was caught off guard, completely unprepared for the devastating impact of the battle they were thrust into. Nevertheless, the Polish forces swiftly responded to counter the onslaught from the German soldiers. Despite managing to eliminate a significant number of German soldiers, this fleeting triumph proved to be illusory, as the Nazi forces overpowered and vanquished them in a decisive victory. This marked Hitler's first major triumph as the leader of the Nazi army. The efficacy of the drugs in the Second World War became evident here, leaving no room for hesitation in their continued use by the military. After all, who would willingly turn away from such an effortless path to victory? Although there is a scarcity of detailed accounts regarding the invasion of Poland, it became evident that Nazi Germany possessed an immensely superior military force compared to Poland. The attack on Poland showcased Germany's capability to effectively employ a combination of air power and armored vehicles in highly dynamic mobile warfare. One report indicates that members of the German military, including Hitler himself, were using drugs during the whole invasion of Poland, which presumably helped propel them to victory. By this point, the usage of methamphetamine, more commonly referred to as crystal meth, was remarkably prevalent in Germany. With the battles against Britain and France looming in the near future, meth was intended to be distributed to the soldiers stationed on the front lines. this in the hope to energize them for combat and ensure heightened vigilance throughout battles. In April 1940, a stimulant decree was issued, leading to the dispatch of over 35 million Pervitin and isofan tablets to the front lines. These tablets played a crucial role in fueling the Nazi forces' attack on France, specifically during their advance through the Ardennes Mountains. Within the Nazi leadership, there were varied preferences regarding drug usage. While some favored methamphetamine, others remained devoted to other substances like Pervitin, isofan, or morphine. Everything was fair game as long as the ultimate objective of achieving victory in the war was not compromised. During a particular interview, it was documented that the Nazi chief of aircraft procurement and supply was actively using methamphetamine. Other figures like Hermann Göring, one of the most influential and powerful Nazi leaders, was frequently observed using morphine. Theodor Morell, Hitler's mind and the controversial drugs. Historical records initially shed little light on the extensive history of drug usage among the Nazis and every facet of German society during that era. In the process of delving into these accounts, an intriguing revelation emerged concerning Hitler's personal physician, the controversial Dr. Theodor Morell. Despite being a minor figure in the history of World War II, his documented notes transformed the fictional narratives surrounding Nazi supersoldiers into verifiable facts with tangible historical evidence. Dr. Theodor Morell held a fascinating position in Hitler's life and, by extension, among the top leaders of Nazi society. Despite the controversy surrounding his practices and the rejection he faced in his field, his expertise in the medical realm could not be ignored. Morell first met Hitler when he treated Heinrich Hoffmann, the official Reich photographer. Later on, Morell prescribed an antibacterial medication that proved effective in alleviating Hitler's intestinal issues. This marked the beginning of their devoted and mutually dependent relationship, which spanned over 9 years, as documented in Morell's notes. Throughout this period, the doctor administered a diverse range of drugs to Hitler, including regular injections of morphine. Due to his association with Hitler, Morell garnered a clientele comprising influential individuals in Nazi Germany, as indicated by his letterhead that identified him as the Führer's personal physician. Morell went to great lengths to facilitate the mass production of vitamin and hormone treatments, even acquiring a Czech pharmaceutical company previously owned by Jewish individuals. While Hitler did not particularly favor Pervitin, he still used it frequently. Morell's documents reveal that Hitler received over 800 injections, and during this period, Morell also administered doses of Udokal, a brand name for synthesized opiate oxycodone, to Hitler. As the battle progressed and the super soldiers took control, Hitler had a meeting with Benito Mussolini, an Italian army leader, and others in 1943. Prior to this encounter, Dr. Morell administered a dose of Udokal to Hitler, which was believed to have a disorienting effect on the dictator's mind, potentially contributing to several impulsive decisions. During the spring of 1945, inside his Berlin bunker, reports surfaced of Hitler struggling with severe withdrawal symptoms. By this point, Hitler had an intense addiction to drugs, and acquiring them had become increasingly difficult in the war-torn and devastated regions. These withdrawals plagued Hitler shortly before he chose to end his life. Back to the super soldiers. The soldiers' use of drugs enabled them to sustain a heightened level of concentration during battles and cope with immense pressures stemming from the war. However, over time, these drugs began to adversely impact their physical and mental well-being. Medical experts agreed that prolonged use of these drugs could result in severe exhaustion, both physically and mentally, necessitating caution. Concerns were also raised about the potential societal consequences of unregulated Pervitin usage, fearing a significant decline in the overall well-being of the citizens of Germany. Despite the prevailing fears and concerns, the army was steadfast in their refusal to abandon the use of drugs. While they had a well-developed strategy to defeat the enemy, there remained a lingering belief that their success hinged on the usage of these drugs. Thus, they continued to rely on Pervitin as the ultimate game-changer in the war. To support their drug-fueled efforts, over 35 million tablets were supplied to the soldiers on the front lines. However, strict guidelines were established through a decree governing their usage. Soldiers were instructed to take 1 tablet during the day and 2 tablets at night. If necessary, an additional 1 or 2 tablets could be taken after 3 hours on the battlefield. The objective of this approach was to guarantee sustained alertness and bolstered self-confidence throughout the entire day. Despite the inclusion of warnings in the decree, they went unheeded. There were numerous reports of heart attacks, suicides, and tragic incidents resulting from the adverse effects of Pervitin overdose, including heightened paranoia. In May 1940, German troops crossed the border into Belgium, encountering well-prepared Belgian soldiers ready to defend against the German invasion. Despite the initial resistance, the cities gradually fell to the advancing German forces. The German soldiers employed unconventional tactics, deviating from the instructions of their commanders, which was a direct result of their continued use of the drugs. By the end of 1941, the drug's impact had become so pronounced that soldiers were succumbing to exhaustion and self-inflicted injuries. This prompted military leaders to scale back usage of the drugs among those on the front lines. Around the same time, the drug was losing popularity in the German civilian market. Despite the decreased use, the use of this drug persisted until the 1980s, resulting in some positive applications but even more adverse effects as documented by medical reports. The exceptional combat prowess of German soldiers, characterized by their fearless and tireless performance in the midst of brutal warfare, is all thanks to the drugs that transformed them into real-life super soldiers.